Welcome to the Calder Farmstead.
Now the Ice Hawks back out to center in transition. Carlson with Quenneville 2-on-1. Right when Carlson comes, Quenneville scores!
Here's a chance for Carrick. Fighting scores! Off the face-off! Up in Zeminger. Pulled back to Werenski. Has it. Shoots one. Bounces off a man. 5 seconds left. Werenski. Another jam on the shot. Turning and firing. They go! They score! They score! Now they catch each other. They both go right over the top. Matching rights to one another. McDermott gets the helmet off of Cassie.
And now, with 9 minutes gone in overtime, the Bears breaking out right side with Bear. Looks like cutting to the net. Bear will score!
And here are your hosts, Cece and Sean.
Hello and greetings from the mile-high city of Denver, Colorado.
And County Clare, Ireland.
Sean's back in his Irish. All right, welcome to the Calder Farmstead podcast, episode number 91 for Friday, March 18th, 2022. If you're hoping for a podcast featuring a guide to chitting seed potatoes, we are not going to be much help. This is an American Hockey League podcast, and my name is CC Hockley, the AHL editor of Full Press Hockey.
And I'm Sean O'Brien from StatsTrack and the AHL's only league-wide analytics guy.
And as always, we thank you for tuning in with us.
If you're new to hearing CC and I talk about hockey, we'd normally be previewing the AHL's weekend here, but are still on a break from our usual preview recap format. So we're both fine. No worries. But this weekend is Patty's weekend. So we won't be able to put in the work to make those episodes happen, and probably won't even be going to work tomorrow, at least for me. So rather than leave you out in the cold or kind of half-assing those episodes, we're going to take some league-wide looks at the trade deadline this week. Still, if you're new to the podcast, you might want to head over to our podcast feed or YouTube channel, wherever you're listening to us from, and check out episode 0. It's a short primer on some of the stats we're going to be talking about, as well as how we view what's important on the ice. So if you're new to some of the more advanced hockey stats terms like PDO or the point shares model, or newer hockey terms like controlled zone entries, go pick that up. Go check that out. So you better be able to pick up what we're putting down. I promise it's not that nerdy or technical. It's only 20 minutes. And let's be honest, you wasted 20 minutes checking out the Harry Potter Legacy game for PS5. I implore all of you to read another book. You'll never get that time back. So next time, why not spend a little more time with us talking hockey?
Thankfully, I don't have a PlayStation 5, so I don't even have to worry about that. But anyway, it is almost time for the trade deadline in professional hockey. And while the AHL side of the trade deadline is usually quiet and features very few, if any, trades that are purely AHL-contracted trades, that doesn't mean it has to. So for this episode, Sean and I will put on our AHL GM hats, as it were, and try to find some hockey trades to be made where both teams gain something. Yes, there is not going to be any fleecing going on here, but a few rules before we dive into it. First, the players have to be on AHL contracts, because otherwise this isn't really an AHL trade episode, and trading guys on NHL contracts is something that requires the involvement of the NHL team and a lot of other outside factors. I'm sure you're going to be seeing that anyway, as the days count down to March 21st, Monday at 3 p.m. Eastern.
Second, we decided not to have trades for future considerations. Apologies to the Belleville Senators fans that won't be seeing their favorite asset acquired on this show. We decided to cut those because it became too easy to just fantasy cast trades to one side. Sending Ryan O'Reilly to the Chicago Wolves or Ontario Reign or Utica Comets for future considerations? Yeah, that's not really a realistic trade. I mean, I guess that could happen, but like that makes us doing these, trade deadline ideas a lot simpler. Like, oh, I don't need to send anything back in return. I just give you future consideration. So yeah, no future considerations here.
You must have been listening to the Phantoms broadcast, because you called him Ryan O'Reilly instead of Cal O'Reilly.
Oh, sorry. Ryan O'Reilly's brother, Cal O'Reilly.
There we go.
His brother?
I think I did. I think I've heard that a time or two on the Phantoms broadcast. All that being said, we do have some trades to discuss, at least some hypothetical ones. Well, theoretical, not hypothetical. I think that's the wrong word.
Both?
Maybe. Anyway, they're made up. They're fictional. So first, we're going to start with some of the more low-key trades before breaking into some of the bigger names that we have, at least on our trade board, moving around. So first and foremost, we're going to go from the North Division to the Atlantic Division, Utica is going to be trading Tyler Wotherspoon, a former Lehigh Phantom, to Lehigh Valley for Logan Day. Sean, break down our first trade.
So the Comets have a pretty stacked roster. They don't really need a whole lot, but they are short on right-handed defensemen, and they could use a righty to fill out the bottom of their defensive core. Because that means that they don't have guys, playing off their backhand and stuff. If you saw my guest appearance on Marty's Illegal Stick podcast, we talked about this a little bit, kind of preluded this trade a little. But the Comets could use a third right-handed defenseman, someone they can put on the bottom pair with Kevin Ball, maybe someone with some offensive upside, maybe someone Kevin Dineen can coach up a bit more to get out of him more than he's gotten his previous destination. Lehigh Valley, on the other hand, needs someone that is a little bit more reliable in his own end. Someone who can make, has at least a little bit of puck moving skills, someone who can get transition going, someone who's also very familiar with the way Phantoms run things and can help be a veteran leader on a very young D-core. This trade fits both of those needs. Tyler Wotherspoon is a former Lehigh Valley Phantom. He's probably very familiar with the team, the systems, the surroundings, that kind of thing. He's a little more reliable on his own end he's a lot more reliable on his own end than what Logan Day has been this season for the Phantoms, but is still overall merely okay in his own end, but still it's an improvement from that aspect. He's someone who can get transition started and can handle a little bit of forechecking pressure. Logan Day is someone who has a lot of offensive upside, but he doesn't channel it well. He has a lot of good raw tools, but he doesn't swing the sword as well as you'd like. That's someone I see as a player that I think Kevin Dineen and his staff could get more out of. He's also a right-handed defenseman who does offensive things. It's someone I would feel comfortable putting next to Kevin Ball because Logan Day is fast. He's a good skater. He can activate off the blue line in the offensive zone, and I can trust Kevin Ball to, be able to handle the defensive aspects of it because I don't trust Logan Day with that. So I think this trade works well for both sides and gives each a little bit of something that they needed. So I like it for both sides, but that's what we're trying to do here.
Yeah, keep it balanced and fair, even in the made-up world, in the magical land of make-believe, as it were. All right, let's talk about our second trade, and we're going to stay in the North Division. Both teams residing in the North Division. Rochester trading away Josh Teves to Cleveland for Cole Castles. Sean, explain the reasoning behind this one.
So Rochester needs forwards who can kill penalties. Point blank. That's it. That's the whole sentence. But Rochester's options to offer trade pieces are pretty limited because most of their guys are on Sabres contracts or are like guys you're not realistically making moves to acquire. They're, I don't want to say replacement level players, but they're not guys that I have a lot of upside. Josh Teves at least is someone I can point to and be like, all right, he has some upside as a defenseman. Cleveland needs a little bit more, guys who are at least somewhat reliable in their own end, who can be a little bit more physical. I think that's Josh Teves. But Cole Castles is not someone who's going to put up a lot of points, but can be relied on to do a better job playing a 200-foot game, can kill some penalties. That's a role that Rochester needs right now. Plus, he is, if nothing else, an AHL caliber forward, and Rochester needs more AHL caliber forwards going down the stretch here. I think this is, again, a move that I think benefits Rochester more, but if I'm Cleveland, I'm looking to sell a lot of pieces. It's more of just what I can get back for them, something that can be useful next year, because Cleveland, too, also has a handful of guys coming in from Columbus, I believe, that are going to need places to play, or not from Columbus, but in the Columbus pipeline that are going to need places to play. So they need to kind of free up some of those spots headed to next year.
And Lord knows, since they're currently sitting at the bottom of the North Division, that they can use all the defense that they can they can take on. So Teves heading to the Monsters, Castles heading to the Americans. Next trade, number 3, Manitoba trading away Jimmy Olgany to Tucson for Cameron Hebig. What's the reason behind this one? Curious.
So Manitoba needs scoring depth.
Mm-hmm.
But the other problem, too, that Manitoba has is a lot of the guys that are on AHL contracts that I could make moves with are guys it's like, oh, yeah, but that's a guy who also can, be a little bit of scoring depth from them. So it's trading away a player that's already in an area of need to get, it didn't work out that well. The only one who was really available to kind of make this work was Jimmy Oligny, who is the captain of that team, which makes it a tough sell. But I think Cameron Hebig has been above average, like way outshone my expectations for what he's done on a bad Tucson team, and a Tucson team that has struggled to generate offense, but he's been someone who's been able to kind of plug away in the middle six of that lineup and put goals in the net and put points on the board for, again, a bad offensive team. I think Manitoba has a position of strength there in their defensive core. And when everyone's there, yes, Jimmy O is your captain, but you need to make moves to, this is a very good Manitoba team. And it seems like it's a waste for the Moose if they have such a good season, they have such a good roster, and they don't go out and try and make a trade to, that could maybe push them through another playoff round. Like, I still think they are a little underarmed to take on someone like Chicago, or if they get to the, Western Conference Finals, an Ontario or a Stockton or whatever, they're going to need more firepower. And I think Cameron Hebig would be a bigger piece for that offense for that team in what they need than what Jimmy Oligny gives them. So that's how I kind of see that trade. Tucson needs help on defense. Their defensive core is downright bad. So any pieces that they can acquire that might be able to shore that up, especially with some more veteran leadership, because while they have veterans, they're not really the ones I think you're looking for necessarily as a group. There are a couple that I think are good. I think Boko Amama could be a good veteran for them. It has been, but I think this helps both teams, even if it's not exactly the trade you would be thinking of for Manitoba.
2 trades in a row where kind of lower sitting teams in the standings acquire a defenseman. And so with that said, going into this third trade, Bakersfield, we're heading out west, at least for one of the teams. The other team's in the Atlantic Division, kind of a long distance trade here, but Bakersfield trading away Yanni Calder to Wilkes-Barre Scranton for Kyle Olsen. Break this down.
So Wilkes-Barre Scranton needs another puck-moving defenseman, because if P.O. Joseph gets called up to the Penguins during the playoffs, that is the list of puck-moving defensemen that I believe in Wilkes-Barre Scranton. I think Yanni Calder has been miscast in Bakersfield. I think that he has not been utilized as well as he could be, and that's not necessarily on the coaching staff. Like, that defensive core has, some talent in it, but the way I think that they put the situations they put Calder in don't necessarily allow him to play his best game. And I think that they can use that, as a good puck moving defenseman who's maybe been a little underappreciated, ship him to Wilkes-Barre Scranton for someone who brings a little bit of grit, a little bit of scoring depth, something that Bakersfield could use, like just an extra little piece in that bottom six that can maybe chip in some offense. I think that's a good fit for him in Bakersfield. I debated this Calder trade a bunch of where to send him, because like I said, I think he's miscast and they have space there to walk away from him without feeling like they lost a huge piece. But at the same time, there are a lot of teams that could use, a good skating puck moving defenseman that could have given them a nice little offensive boost in the bottom six. This is where I wound up with that, because I felt like the fit was best here given the board as it played. But there are a lot of other places you could have sent Yanni Calder to and gotten I felt like a fairly similar return, but this felt like the best match for both sides.
Gotcha. Okay.
All right. Well, those are our smaller deal trades that we have going on here. We are going to take a break, though, and after the break, we will finish our trade deadline with the bigger pieces that we have to move. Some spicier, juicier names that you're going to see flying around here, including some for the Henderson Silver Knights. A little teaser there. But before we go to break, though, don't forget to subscribe wherever you're listening to us from so you get episodes in a timely fashion. Also, make sure you check us out on social media. Links to all of that and more can be found on our Linktree page at linktr.ee/The Calder Farmstead. We're going to pay some bills, run some ads. We will be right back. Stay tuned.
Okay, we've covered some of the smaller trades from the minds of Sean and Cece, and now we're going to bump over, looking over this list. This is exciting. Like, this is going to be fun. And
we're making moves. We're making capital M moves here.
Let's go. Seriously, this is going to be fun. First and foremost, right off the bat. Okay, this is this is going to be okay. Hershey trading away Cody Franzen to the Bridgeport Sound Tigers. There, I said it, for Chris Terry.
Yeah.
Please, I beg you. What inspired this?
Look, Hershey has been dead thin in the offensive ranks for a while now, between injuries, call-ups getting injured, that whole deal. And it's not like I was thinking, oh, they'll get healthy in time for the playoffs, and it's not looking that way. And Hershey doesn't exactly have a position, like a giant position of strength like Manitoba, where they can trade away a defenseman who's useful for, a bottom six guy and not worry about it, because they have great, losing Cody Franzen will hurt Hershey. Don't get me wrong, but they need another big scoring piece. And I think, honestly, Cody Franzen's on his last legs. He's still been solid for them, but he's a piece that I'm okay moving on from the rest of the season, even though I'm not a huge fan of what's behind him on the depth chart for Hershey. I don't think anyone is. But Chris Terry is a point-a-game player who is straight-up offense only. I don't think I've seen him play significant defense in any game I've watched him this year, but he will put the puck in the net, and that's what Hershey needs more so than anything else. Bridgeport needs defensemen who at the minimum can, move the puck a little bit up the ice, do something off the blue line, maybe do some work on the power play. And it's pretty clear Bridgeport values size and physicality, and Cody Franzen brings those things too. They don't care the fact that Cody Franzen is maybe one of the slowest defensemen in the AHL, because he's going to be on a team in Bridgeport that has at least two of the other slowest defensemen in the AHL on it. So that's not a concern for them. I think this trade at least gives each side something that it doesn't have, even if it's not necessarily trading from a position of strength. I think this is one that, Bridgeport's season is basically over here, but if they can keep Franzen for next year, I still think that's a big piece for them. They also have a fair amount of guys who are going to come in next season in Bridgeport they have one that it looks like they're going to come in as a prospect that they're going to need to make space for. And that roster is already kind of jammed up as it is, and pulling Terry out of it frees up a roster space for Ruslan Ishkahov, who looks like, I think he's going to be coming over from, I know prospects when they come onto our AHL radar, so I'm not as familiar with him or even how to say his name, but he is going to probably be in Bridgeport next season from my reading of the tea leaves, and having Chris Terry's absence on the roster frees up a roster spot for him. But Hershey needs offense. Bridgeport needs defense. I feel like even though these aren't positions of strength they're swapping, it's a fair trade.
Well, and it's interesting too, because these guys are pretty close in the standings right now. Like Hershey has fallen considerably. You mentioned it earlier on, the injuries. It's a concern. It's showing in the standings. Hershey's fifth in the, I was going to say the North Division, but I know that's
Atlantic,
not right. In the Atlantic Division. Thank you. Hershey's fifth in the Atlantic Division, and Bridgeport is seventh. So with, less than 0.08 points separating the two in points percentage, it's just, to make a trade like this, it would benefit both of them. And it'd be interesting to see what team, like if Hershey would keep falling or if Bridgeport could, usurp them, as it were, in the standings.
I wouldn't worry too much about Bridgeport usurping them. According to the last run of the Monte Carlo model that I've been running, which has not been updated in the last week, so this is still last Thursday's data, they have a 33.6% chance of making the playoffs, whereas Hershey is basically locked up at 96.9%. So I'm not too concerned that this is going to mess with that. Like I said, in my mind, Bridgeport's season is pretty much over. So this is a good chance for Hershey to strengthen itself for a possible playoff run if one is going to happen, as well as Bridgeport being able to bring in someone who's a veteran defenseman who has size and physicality, who can move the puck and do things off the blue line. I think that gives them a piece they don't have going into next year and frees up a roster spot for a young prospect to come over from Russia and fill in the forward group.
Alrighty then. Well, let's move on to our second big trade going on here.
This is probably the biggest one.
Yeah. Lehigh Valley, we mentioned him earlier. Ryan O'Reilly's brother himself, Cal O'Reilly, getting traded to Milwaukee for Matt Donovan. Unpack this one. Woo.
So Milwaukee needs penalty killers badly.
Mm-hmm.
They also, no team is ever going to say, wow, we have enough scorers in our lineup or some playmakers. Like Cal O'Reilly has been, on the penalty kill for Lehigh Valley, and Lehigh Valley's penalty kill has been fantastic with him on the ice. He's a very good penalty killer. He's also someone who still is capable of putting up good numbers offensively and not just kind of chipping in a depth role, but, driving scoring on a line, even on a team that has been as offensively decrepit as the Phantoms have been. The Phantoms need defenders. They need defenders who can, move the puck, who can do offensive things, who can play in their own end, and who are, have a little bit of sandpaper to them. That is Matt Donovan. And while, yes, Milwaukee has a fair amount of depth on the blue line, I think freeing up minutes from Matt Donovan to go to some of their other defensemen is going to help that team as a whole. Because like I said, watching Matt Donovan earlier when we had Eric on from On the Future talking about the Admirals, that like Matt Donovan does 4 or 5 things a game where I'm like, that's a number 1 defenseman in this league. And then he does 2 or 3 where I just shake my head and like, I don't know what you were doing there. Like the Phantoms don't have a guy on their defensive roster right now, besides maybe Cam York, that consistently makes great offensive plays like that and can move the puck and do good things. That has me saying like, wow, that's a number 1 AHL defenseman. I think that's a huge benefit to them if they can keep Matt Donovan. Also, Matt Donovan is a solid veteran in this league, someone who has shown leadership roles in the past, I believe. So is someone that can help carry this very young defensive core in Lehigh Valley forward a little bit more. Cal O'Reilly, while still a valued veteran and an important part of the Phantoms offense, I think this is a good swap. I don't think there are too many years left on Cal O'Reilly, and I think there are quite a number of them left on Matt Donovan. So from a gaining time perspective, yeah, that works. Assuming that both of them stay in the same place next year, which not a guarantee, but at the same point, I think this is a good move for both sides. You're set, Cal O'Reilly's getting a shot to maybe chase a Calder Cup here with the Admirals. The Phantoms are picking up a big need in a defenseman who can do it all and be there in all situations, that can provide leadership. I think that's a good swap for both sides.
Yeah, I was just about to say that with, Milwaukee's 3rd in the Central Division. So to pick up an extra guy to kind of push, especially with Manitoba and Chicago ahead of them, couldn't hurt.
Especially one who can kill penalties. That's been a huge thorn in their side this entire time. And Cal O'Reilly's been fantastic at it this whole season.
All right. Staying in the Central Division for at least one team, we're going to talk about the Iowa Wild trading away Nick Sweeney to the Henderson Silver Knights for Alan Quine. And I know Alan Quine, he had a great season with Bakersfield a couple of years ago. But yeah, a little underwhelming for the Henderson Silver Knights, at least from what I've seen.
He's been like, don't get me wrong, he's still a good player. He's been good for them. Sure. And like he's been bouncing around their top 6, top 9 for most of his time there. He seems like he's maybe struggled to find good chemistry with, line mates, but he's still been a useful piece. But right now, Henderson has plenty of offense, but they need their penalty kill has not been good recently. Like I still like the scheme, but they need better guys to execute it. And they have offense to spare a little bit here. So I think Nick Sweeney has cooled off a lot from the early season heater that he went on, where he looked like he was, maybe a top 6 forward in the AHL coming out of nowhere. But he's been a solid defensive player for them. He's been a solid penalty killer for the Wild. And currently the Wild don't need penalty kill help. Their penalty kill is doing fantastic, but they need someone they need another depth. They need another scorer. They need someone who can take some of the offensive load off of Kyle Rao and Marco Rossi and produce on a more consistent basis. And that hasn't been Sweeney down the stretch run. And it is Alan Quine. And I think that's why this trade makes sense. It gives Henderson something that they need, and it's trading from a position of strength. Iowa's trading from a position of strength here in penalty killers and defensive forwards and gaining scoring. So I think it works for both sides, and you're not directly trading, a valuable piece to someone that you're fighting for a playoff spot for. If Iowa's going to make a playoff push here, which they may or may not, they're going to need more scoring to do it, even if they get in the playoffs.
Okay, let's talk about the next trade. We're going to stick with a Pacific Division team and a Central Division team. We're going to keep that theme going. San Diego trading Alex Limoges. Did I pronounce that right?
Correct.
Alex Limoges to Rockford for Ryan Stanton. What is the rationale behind the second Pacific to Central connection here?
I will say Ryan Stanton was in a lot of these initial trades that we kind of drew together here because he's someone who has been helpful to Rockford, good, solid kind of stay-at-home defenseman, can help kill penalties, can be physical in front of the net. Not necessarily a great puck mover or an offensive guy. He's not going to put up those kind of numbers, but he's been something that I think a lot of other teams have needed. And while Rockford, I'm not saying he's not been useful to Rockford, but Rockford needs scoring depth. They need other guys that can put the puck in the net that when Lucas Reichel is not in town, because he'll be back for the playoffs, but it would be nice if he didn't have to do everything on his own. His general physician has already graded him with level 2 scoliosis from carrying Rockford's offense. So getting Alex Limoges is someone who has had kind of a weird season in San Diego. He started to pick it up a little bit more recently, I think, but is someone who I think would benefit from maybe not necessarily a change of scenery overall, but a different offensive scheme. I don't think that he has fit in well with Joël Bouchard's offensive ideas. And that's nothing against the player or the coach here. Sometimes it's just not a match. But I also think, too, Alex Limoges here reunites with Evan Barrett, a Penn State alum. So we're putting Penn Staters together. That's half of the reason that this trade exists, because it was like, wow, that really fits well. So I thought like Alex Limoges was another one who I thought could go to a bunch of different destinations and bring back San Diego something they need. In terms of what San Diego needs, they need penalty killers. They need more physical, reliable defensemen who can defend the net front and, not put such a big burden on their goaltending. That's Ryan Stanton. And that's why I think this is a good swap for both. You're trading, someone who maybe hasn't quite fit in your offensive scheme, who's been a little inconsistent, to a team that needs anyone who can do things offensively, who has enough defense and enough penalty killing to survive, sending them a good defensive penalty killer.
Let's stick with the Pacific Division, shall we? At least the third team in a row from the Pacific Division making a theoretical trade here. Bakersfield. Okay, this is the first one that involves a 2-for-1. Bakersfield trading away Tim Schaller and Devin Brousseau to Laval for Kevin Poulin.
Yeah, Kevin Poulin was another that it's like, there are a lot of places that could use a safety net in goal.
Mm-hmm.
A safety net.
Nice.
Not intentional. Oh, I feel terrible. I need a shower.
You should
now.
enjoy it. Bask in it.
The Condors need a goalie here, because given the Oilers goaltending woes and Oilers goaltending health, Stuart Skinner's been up and down all around and is not someone that you may be able to count on when playoffs come for just simply being in Bakersfield. So this and the options behind Stuart Skinner have not worked very well. Like, if you're Bakersfield here, you're sitting in a good playoff position here in the Pacific Division. Do you really want to, gamble the season that you built for yourself on the goaltending behind Stuart Skinner? I don't. And while I don't think Kevin Poulin is nearly as good as he's played in Laval recently, I still think he's way better as a goaltender than what they have behind Stuart Skinner. And I'm willing to give up some guys who are a little lower in our depth in the Bakersfield depth chart, give away some depth scoring, which I think is okay here, to Laval, who needs depth scoring. I do not believe in their bottom six. And even if they get guys back from Montreal when the season is over, I think having more guys that can put pucks in the net for you is important. Kevin Poulin has played really well. That's why I think he commands more than just a Tim Schaller or a Devin Brousseau on his own, because when we kind of worked through these, there were other packages for Kevin Poulin. He was a very sought after guy. So you kind of have to outbid some of those teams here if you're Bakersfield.
Right.
But I don't think Bakersfield is, losing the farm here on offense for what could be a backup goaltender. I think this is trading from a reasonable position of strength here to gain a backstop in case Stuart Skinner isn't there, or if he gets hurt, because if that's the case, I do not like their playoff chances with Rodrigue or Konovlov.
Yeah, neither do I. Sending Poulin to the Condors, it makes the most sense. It really does. Last but not least, we're talking another Pacific team. Boy, Pacific Division, really busy at the AHL trade deadline here.
I mean, they when you have 7 teams making it, the slope, to get to the top of the Pacific Division is very, very slippery. And a lot of those teams, like we talked about in the middle, like, yeah, Stockton and Ontario look like world beaters. But at the same point, if you want to contend with them, you're going to have to make some moves and shore up some places here, because otherwise it could get kind of dicey. Whereas like the other divisions, it seems like, well, there's a couple teams at the top. And I mean, if you're Grand Rapids, you got to make a lot of moves. And if you want to say that we can compete with Manitoba and Chicago and Milwaukee, same with, Rockford, like you need to make capital M moves in multiple of them. And given the restrictions we put on our trades, if you can only move AHL players, you have to do hockey trades. Like that's not in the playbook for them.
No, it really isn't. So the cherry on top, last but not least, the Henderson Silver Knights are going to part ways with forward Reed Duke, Sir Duke himself, and defenseman Ian McCoshen to Lehigh Valley to liberate Pat Nagel from the Lehigh Valley Phantoms and the Reading Royals.
So this is a trade that very much mirrors kind of what Bakersfield did, trading, some position from a little bit of depth here to gain a safety net in net, as it were, because Logan Thompson has been in spot duty for the Golden Knights quite a few times now, and he's looked serviceable in those moments. And given that Robin Lehner's health has been kind of like Mike Smith's health in Edmonton, where it's not been consistent, and Logan Thompson has very much looked the part, unlike Stuart Skinner, moonshine. But that's besides. Like if you're Henderson, same question I asked for Bakersfield: are you really going to claw your way through this entire season, have a good season, a skating core that you can point to and believe in, and then hope that Yuri Patera or Dylan Ferguson are enough? This was another one that the Condors kind of outbid in our pretend trade deadline world here. Henderson for Kevin Poulin, but this is straight Logan Thompson insurance here, because Yuri Patera and Dylan Ferguson are not goaltenders I want to put in that. And Lehigh Valley needs, AHL competent defenseman. I think that is still Ian McCoshen. They need, a little bit of more competent AHL scoring depth and, forwards. That's still Reed Duke. Like neither of them are, oh my God, guys, everyone, look who it's not that kind of trade. They also have made it really clear, Lehigh Valley has, that there isn't a place for Pat Nagel. Ershon, Sandstrom, Ustamenko, all in the mix. When all three of them are healthy, Pat Nagel's in Reading. There isn't a need to keep Pat Nagel there, because even if one of them does get hurt, which has happened quite a few times, you can call up Ustamenko from Reading. He's an actual prospect for the Flyers. So getting him playing time is going to be important over, Pat Nagel, who's a journeyman AHLer. Nagel hasn't been great this year, but also I think some of that is the Phantoms team in front of him.
Yeah.
And, not to mention going up and down between the ECHL and the AHL is beneath him. Let's put it that way. He's too good a goalie to be playing in the ECHL. So I think Henderson does themselves a solid here, trades away some guys that, yes, they like, but they need a safety net in case Logan Thompson is on the other side of the strip from them for the playoffs, because Dylan Ferguson and Yuri Patera are not getting it done.
Another trade that I did float your way for Pat Nagel was putting him back on the team that he was a part of when he came into professional hockey, and that was the Dallas Stars organization, putting him on the Texas Stars. And looking at the Texas Stars AHL contracts, holy smokes, they've got a lot of Dallas Stars contracted guys.
Yeah.
Like the only AHL contracted guys that they have one defenseman in Max Martin. They've got Jeremy Gregoire, Anthony Lewis, Curtis McKenzie, and Josh Melnick. 4 forwards and 1 defenseman on AHL contracts. So if Texas were to trade for Pat Nagel, I don't know how they could get it done without, it kind of being a one-side deal, because Anthony Lewis is a stud.
Yeah,
Curtis McKenzie is your captain at 31. Josh Melnick is your alternate captain. So you're not
sending Lewis or Curtis McKenzie to Lehigh Valley for Pat Nagel. Like that too. And I felt like, yeah, I think Texas needs another goaltender, but I could also see them being okay with Jurisic and Scheel and Colton Point. Like, I would not be okay with that, but Texas also is not in the most amicable playoff position here. The last update of the Monte Carlo playoff probability has them at 20.3%. I don't think that's going to change too much. I think it's unlikely they make the playoffs. So, dealing one of those guys for a goaltender that might not even help you doesn't make a whole ton of sense to me. That's why I thought it was a better move for Henderson or for someone else, especially because they can offer comparable packages. Like,
And the fact that you mentioned Scheel, you mentioned Point, you mentioned Jurisic. Scheel's actually up with Dallas because Khudobin's on IR. So you've got Holtby and Scheel.
Wait, why? Isn't it Ottinger and Holtby in Dallas?
Oh, it's Ottinger. It's Ottinger and Holtby. Sorry. Scheel got called up on an emergency basis, and it threw me for a loop the other night. He's on emergency loan. So
yeah, so emergency loan. Yeah, he'll be back.
He'll be back. So yeah, you got Scheel, Point. So I guess maybe not Texas. I guess.
Man, if only Texas had like another goaltender that was dependable, that was a veteran that they could just kind of put in the net there, someone to help in moments like this. Thomas Scholl, just yeah. If that could have worked out for them.
I mean, he just finished up his season overseas. You could reach out and say, hey.
So according to Pat Williams, you can't do that anymore. Apparently the deadline for like signing those guys from Europe has passed. I didn't know that. Otherwise, then yeah, we're fantasy casting which team is racing to Thomas Scholl first. But like I in that kind of weird nuanced thing of AHL front office trade rules I didn't know about. I will trust that Pat Williams knows what he's talking about there. Pat does, in general with the AHL. So like that's more of that kind of aspect. Like he said that you can't be signing those guys because when players were leaving Europe basically to get away from stuff going on there, that was what he said is like, yeah, you can't just sign these guys. It's the AHL contract. So if that's the case, yeah, we can't do Thomas Scholl to back to Texas or to, any one of these other teams that needs a goaltender right now.
Right.
I also thought about putting Jurisic on the trade market there, but it was one of those I'm like, okay, but again, Texas isn't really in a buying position at the AHL trade deadline here. So what are they getting? Like it was a lot because we put these kind of restrictions of no future considerations, no NHL contracts. This became kind of challenging. But I think we made some interesting moves.
I was excited. Yeah. It was definitely it was a good kind of hypothetical exercise where we could be like, okay, what if? And yeah, it worked out well. So.
I had the Phantom sending Hayden Hodgson away too, but then I realized that was too like the return they got from him. Like, no, that's a bad trade. If you're the Phantom's assistant or Phantom's GM there and you traded Hayden Hodgson for, I forget what the package was. I'm like, you get fired. That's a bad trade. But I would say if I'm the Phantoms, I sell high on Hayden Hodgson here. It's just more of what we could get as a return was not what, the Phantoms needed or anything like that. So that's why we didn't do it.
And I felt like Phantoms made a lot of moves in our.
I mean, they have a lot of AHL contracts and they have a lot of prospects that are probably going to be in the AHL next season. Noah Cates, Jay O'Brien, maybe Samu Tuomala. They also have Tyson Forrester coming back from injury. That's 4 forwards right there that are probably going to be on the Phantoms next year. And I think Hayden Hodgson has greatly outkicked his coverage in terms of the points he's put up and the goals he has this year. So selling high on him seems like a smart move.
Yeah. And that's the thing to kind of wrap it up here is that we didn't just look at available players. We looked at the prospects coming into these teams, coming into these organizations that would more than likely play in the AHL next year while they get developed. So we didn't just haphazardly, try and make these trades as even as possible, some NHL 22 status at the AHL level, but we looked forward and defenseman and goalie. So yeah, it wasn't, it was measured in many different ways for an exercise, a fictional exercise. We did our due diligence. That's for sure.
And I will say, I think there are some places or some teams too that should also be selling here that we just couldn't find trade partners for with the way we kind of approach this. I think the Barracuda should be sending away Evan Weinger and Kyle Topping, because they have a bunch of forwards coming in the future next year and are going to need roster spots for those. And that roster is already, a clown car trying to find 18 skaters every game out of like the 50 that are on that technical roster. I think Evan Weinger is still a useful piece. And like, he was originally part of that Cody Franz and Hershey trade, but then I swapped it out. But there are a lot of other, teams and places that I think should be considering moving on from guys. Cleveland is another one. They have a lot of guys that are AHL contract eligible, and they have a fair amount of prospects coming in, but we just couldn't find as many fits for them. Like Adam Haluka maybe could be someone that moves. He's an older guy. I think a chance to chase a Calder Cup would be nice for him. Let's see. Who else did we not get to trade in this, but very much I think is a Grand Rapids with Dominic Shine. Grand Rapids has a lot of dudes coming in next season that I think are going to, end up being part of that team that are going to need, roster time. And as much as I like Dom Shine, he's not someone exactly Detroit is interested in the development of anymore.
I know from Colorado, Rob Hamilton, he's been deployed as a seventh defenseman, kind of a low pairing defenseman for the Eagles, but he's also played forward a number of times for the Eagles this season. So he's kind of that utility guy that could be useful. And the Eagles are kind of, when the Avs are healthy and when the Eagles are healthy, they've got a deep team. And so Rob Hamilton, trading him away, but I mean, that's another theoretical trade. It's like, who would we trade for Rob Hamilton?
Hamilton was part of a package for Chris Terry initially, I think, in our first.
Oh, wow. Okay. I didn't realiage that
because it was getting them power play help and getting them, some guys that can build out some of the depth in Bridgeport. So Chris Terry, finding a trade partner for Chris Terry was not an easy one, but I thought that Cody Franz and Hershey made the biggest one.
Sure.
Nick Swaney was another one that could have gone a bunch of places. Let's see who else. Travis Barron from Tucson was someone else I thought that they could make moves for. David Gust in Chicago. That was the one that I was like, okay, but what are you sending to Chicago to make that a worthwhile trade? And I just couldn't find it. Like,
oh man,
David Gust is good. Don't get me wrong, but Chicago has Noah Gunler, Honka, Pistola, and Nishkishin possibly coming into the Wolves next year in the AHL. They're going to need places to play, and David Gust could go to another team. So you might as well try and get something for him. But I couldn't make that trade work. And so lots of other, teams that it wouldn't work, even though I thought they had guys that would be useful to move, but couldn't find a reasonable return here where one side isn't like, are you kidding? Are you kidding?
And this was kind of a fun exercise, like you said, with St. Paddy's Day, currently St. Paddy's Day, as we record this on March 17th, a Thursday. It's a fun exercise, just a fun exercise to kind of, like I said earlier, what if, and with the NHL trade deadline coming up on Monday, it was good timing. It was good timing.
All right. We're going to take another break here. After the break, we have a quiz.
Yes, we do.
Okay.
Yes, we do. And guess what? Yes, I'm the one giving it this time. For the first time in our podcast history, we're coming up on 2 years in May as podcast co-hosts. I am giving Sean the quiz. So hold on to your butts.
All right. Well, if you're just here for the trade deadline portion of our show, thank you for stopping by. Don't forget to subscribe wherever you're listening to us from so you get episodes in a timely fashion. Also, check us out on social media. Links to our social media, all our podcast places, some other things are in there. Those are all found at our Linktree page at linktr.ee/the Calder Farmstead. We're going to pay some bills, run some ads, and I'm going to lose a quiz. Stay tuned.
Okay, wrapping up our theoretical AHL trade deadline episode, I decided to put together a little quiz for Sean. Sean has always been so diligent in putting together real fun, real challenging, not too challenging, but real challenging quizzes for me. And it's about time I turn the tables on him. So without further ado, minor league hockey has a lot more turnover than the NHL. And at times, cities will see 2, 3, 4, maybe more iterations of a minor league squad, and sometimes even teams with the same nickname as its predecessors. So in honor of St. Patrick's Day, this quiz is called 4-Leaf Clover, and the number 4 plays a part in it. So it's going to cover minor league hockey markets that currently have or have had an AHL team, an American Hockey League team, plus other iterations of the same team name in 4 or more different minor leagues. Well, AHL plus 3 more. So they this same name, AHL plus 3 different leagues with the same team name. So for example, if the fictional Chicago Cloverleafs, if they had a team in the AHL called the Cloverleafs, the ECHL, the UHL, and the SPHL, that would be a correct guess for this quiz.
Now, do they all have to be in Chicago, or they just have to be 4 Cloverleaf teams?
No, it has to be the Chicago Cloverleafs.
Oh, okay, so 4 iterations in 4 different leagues of the Chicago Cloverleafs. That's
of this team name, because obviously it's not the same franchise.
Oh yeah,
that would be. But anyway, so if a team has played in 3 or less different leagues, picking them would be an incorrect answer.
Gotcha. Okay.
So this team name has to have spanned 4 or more leagues. Sean, are you ready to play 4-Leaf Clover?
Probably not, but we're going to do it anyway, so let's go.
I cannot tell the listeners and the viewers out there how much it makes me happy to see Sean squirm so much.
All right, let's go.
All right, let's do this. First question is titled, Go West, Shawnee boy. All right. Which team has skated in 4 or more minor leagues? All of these are Western-based teams, if you didn't get so by the title. The San Diego Gulls, the Bakersfield Condors, or the Utah Grizzlies.
Oh.
4 or more minor leagues. San Diego, Bakersfield, Utah, the Gulls, the Condors, or the Grizzlies.
I'm going to say the San Diego Gulls. I think they've been in a bunch of them. I know that the Condors have been in, like, obviously the AHL. I know they had some ECHL time. I think they were in the WCHL as well. The Grizzlies, I know, have been in more than one league, but I've seen so many iterations of Gulls jerseys, Gulls logos, that kind of thing. I think the Gulls have been in more than them. I'm going San Diego here.
Final answer? Okay.
Final answer.
That is correct. The San Diego Gulls played in the Western Hockey League from 1966 to 1974, the IHL from 1990 to 95, the WCHL from 95 to 2003, the ECHL from 2003 to 2006, and of course, the AHL from 2015 to the present. You were correct. Bakersfield, WCHL, ECHL, and AHL. Utah was in the IHL, the AHL, and the ECHL. So Baco and Utah with 3.
Sure.
San Diego with
after me.
5.
All right, that's how we're going to play.
Yes. Nicely done. Sean is 1 for 1. We've got a number of questions here. Let's say you get 3 right, and we'll call it good.
All right.
Well, actually, let's see. We've actually got technically. Oh, yeah, we'll say 3. We'll say I should have established that before. But if you get 3 right, we'll call it good. Next question, we're going to call this Bring the Illinois.
Oh, no.
All these teams are based in the great state of Illinois. So name the team that has been in 4 or more minor leagues. The Chicago Wolves, the Rockford Ice Hogs, or the Peoria Rivermen.
Oh, that's Peoria. Final answer, Peoria Rivermen.
That's correct. You said it in the intro, and I'm like, crap.
No, I know Chicago is AHL, IHL.
Correct.
Rockford had a UHL, I want to say, and is now the AHL. So I knew those 2 were out. So unless it was a third one that I wasn't sure about, and you said Peoria, and I'm like, no, I know Peoria. Peoria's been
IHL from 84 to 96, ECHL from 96 to 05, AHL from 05 to 2013, and the SPHL 2013 to present. So 4 different leagues for Peoria. Nicely done. 2 for 2 for Mr. Sean O'Brien. Not doing bad at all, bud. Not doing bad at all. All right, third question is titled Carolina, and parenthetically, and Virginia, on my mind. So which team from North or South Carolina or Virginia has been in 4 or more minor leagues?
Get me here.
The Norfolk Admirals, the Charlotte Checkers, or the Carolina/Greensboro Monarchs. A little caveat there. Carolina/Greensboro Monarchs. So yes, Norfolk, Charlotte, Carolina/Greensboro.
I've never even heard of the Greensboro Monarchs. So if that's the answer, you got me. I have no idea. In all of my years of studying and looking at minor league hockey, I've never even heard of that team. I'm assuming it's what became the Manchester Monarchs, but I don't know. Norfolk, as far as I know, has only been in 2. And I've seen a billion Charlotte Checkers logos, like, that are like the polar bear with the hockey stick and a couple others. So I'm going to go Charlotte Checkers here. Final answer.
That is correct. The Charlotte Checkers.
What's up? Let's go.
They were in the Eastern Hockey League from 1960 to 1973. The Southern Hockey League from Southern Hockey League from 73 to 77, the ECHL from 93 to 2010, and of course the AHL from 2010 to present. You got it right. Norfolk has only been in the AHL and the ECHL. Greensboro/Carolina, ECHL and AHL. They were an AHL team in the mid 90s from 1995 to 1997. They did not become the Manchester Monarchs, by the way.
I have never heard of that team. All right.
It's so niche. You want to keep going?
Fun. Let's run through some more here.
Okay. We've got actually 4 more questions.
All right.
There we go. Number 4, the title of this question is North by Northeast. Of these northern-based teams, which one has been a part of 4 or more minor leagues? I was about to say minor leagues team, but 4 or more minor leagues. The Manitoba Moose, the Maine Mariners, or the Springfield Indians?
Ooh, I'm glad I got the first 3 right. No, it's definitely the Maine Mariners. That team had like 4 or 5 different logos, a bunch of different iterations. They were an AHL team back in the day. They're an ECHL team now. I think they were in like one of the other goofy like IHL or UHL leagues. I'm going Maine here. Final answer.
That is incorrect.
Ooh.
The Maine Mariners have only been in the AHL and the ECHL.
Really?
The Manitoba Moose have only been in the IHL and the AHL. The Springfield Indians, they were in the Can-Am Hockey League, which is the predecessor to the AHL, back in 1926 to 33 and 35 and 36. They had a number of different iterations in the AHL, 36 to 42, 46 to 51, 54 to 67, and 74 to 94 was when they were in the AHL. They were also in the Eastern Hockey League back in 51 to 53 and the Quebec Hockey League from 1953 to 1954. All of those are minor pro leagues.
All right. Well played.
There you go. Yes.
That's why I said I'm glad I got the first 3 right. All right.
3 for 4, not bad. Let's do Pregunta número 5. This one's titled East Coast Bias. 4 or more minor leagues for which team's namesake? Is it the Manchester Monarchs, the Baltimore Clippers, or the Connecticut Whale?
Oh. I definitely don't think it's the Clippers. Like, Baltimore's had a couple of hockey teams come through there, but they haven't all been the Clippers. They were the Bandits, and I think one other Baltimore team that was in there. So, sorry, you said Baltimore, the Clippers. Who were the other 2?
Baltimore Clippers, Manchester Monarchs, or Connecticut Whale?
I think the Monarchs only were in those 2. The Whale feels like a team that has been killed, brought back. Like, it's basically a lost character at this point for the number of times it's managed to, be returned to a living status. I'm going to go with the Whale here.
That is incorrect.
Ooh.
The Connecticut Whale have only been an AHL and now a NWHL slash PHF team, the Women's Hockey League, the National Women's Hockey League, or the Pro Hockey Federation, Professional Hockey Federation. The Baltimore Clippers is the correct answer. So the Clippers, yes, they played in the Eastern Hockey League in the 40s and the 50s. They also played in the AHL from 62 to 75, 75 to 76, and they also played in the Southern Hockey League. They also played in the Northeastern Hockey League from 79 to 1981. So the Baltimore Clippers and the Manchester Monarchs, they only were an AHL and an ECHL team. Yeah. They had a Monarchs team for a few major juniors teams, but those are the only two pro that they graced. So 3 for 5.
You don't get paid in juniors unless you play for the London Knights. So,
oh, no comment. No comment. All right. Question number 6 and 7. These will be for fun. Like I said, you already got 3 for 5. Question number 6. This one's titled West to Midwest. 4 or more minor leagues played in. All right. 3 choices. The Phoenix / Tucson Roadrunners, the Milwaukee Admirals, or the Houston Aeros.
Oh, there have been so many Roadrunners. But the problem is I don't think all of them have been in Arizona or Tucson. Like, there's one in Edmonton. There was one in Oklahoma, I want to say. Like, there have been a lot of Roadrunners, because I know when I was looking up logos for the Tableau page, there were a lot of really, like, off-the-wall ones where I'm like, all right, cool, we'll go with it. I think there was an Indianapolis Roadrunners at one point. I don't know. Houston had a couple of iterations of the Arrows in the world, the WHA, and obviously the AHL. And I think there was a different one, or there was a third one. What was the third option that I'm missing there?
Milwaukee.
Oh. And the ads have been around for a long time. Like, that's, I think, the key to this is picking the franchise that seems like it's just been around a bunch, especially in like the 60s and 70s, where there were like a new minor pro hockey league every month. I think this is against my better judgment. I want to go with the Roadrunners here, but I'm going to go with the Admirals. That's my final answer.
You should have gone with the Roadrunners, because that was the correct answer. The Phoenix Roadrunners have played in the Western Hockey League from 67 to 74, the Central Hockey League, 77-78, the Pacific Hockey League in 77 to 79, the IHL from 89 to 1997, and
the AHL.
Yeah, the AHL, Tucson, 2016 to present. So Milwaukee has only played in the IHL and the AHL. Well, and there was a 70s USHL semi-pro league named when the team was named the Milwaukee Admirals there. The Arrows, like you said, WHA, AHL, and the IHL. So almost. You've already won it, but last question. This one's kind of a bonus question. You mentioned the Roadrunners. You mentioned different teams being named the Roadrunners. Sean, there have been 3 markets in AHL history that have had the Roadrunners moniker. Name them.
Oh, well, okay. Obviously, Tucson is one of them. I think Edmonton was another.
You've got 2.
Say Indianapolis.
Indianapolis is incorrect.
Oh, what was the third?
Toronto.
Oh, I knew that too.
The Toronto Roadrunners. Now, the Edmonton Roadrunners came about in 04-05 during the lockout, the NHL lockout. And I think Toronto was a year before that in 03-04. And the Toronto Roadrunners ended up moving to Edmonton. So 2 Canadian teams have been named for a southern-based bird.
Yeah, that's weird.
Right. So there it is. That's the quiz. And guess what, my friend? You get 30 untimed seconds to talk about whatever you wish. So,
all right,
Mr. O'Brien, the floor is yours.
One thing that has been an incredibly minor annoyance, but we as a hockey community need to stop doing, can we please stop doing the, as they say in hockey, let's do that hockey. Like there was an SNL sketch from what feels like a decade ago. It's been used so ubiquitously that I'm just like, guys, it's been a long time. That reference is probably lost on some millennials now and Gen Zers. So I think it's time that we retire it and we find a new hockey catchphrase or something like that that you can use as an intro or whatever for, live coverage of games. Please, let's retire the let's do that hockey from that SNL sketch with Chance the Rapper. I think it is past its prime. It's had a good life. It's time for it to go into meme heaven.
Would you keep the sound clip in the arenas, though?
I mean, I know they're going to, because like hockey arena noises haven't been updated in 10 years. Like every team, when they kill a penalty, does the Mario.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Like every team. So they'll keep doing it, but they shouldn't. We need newer things.
Well, Sean, you get to take us out today for episode number 91. So again, the floor is yours.
All right. That's it for the show. Thank you for watching and or listening. The Calder Farmstead is part of the Full Press Radio Network. You can listen to this and several other great hockey, sports, and sports entertainment programs at www.fullpresscoverage.com. Just click the podcast drop-down menu in the top right portion of the website and enjoy.
I'm not the only one that's got sound effects for that. Nicely done. Hey, if you guys are enjoying, guys, gals, non-binary pals are enjoying the Calder Farmstead, please make sure to subscribe so you get episodes in a timely fashion. Also, if you're listening on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or Amazon, please rate and review the podcast. Or if you're watching it on YouTube, like the video, comment on what you thought of the episode, and of course, subscribe. Doing so helps others find the show, and your reviews help us improve it. You can also follow the show on social media at Calder Farmstead on Twitter, at The Calder Farmstead on Instagram and Facebook. Links to all that and more can be found on our link tree, which is linktr.ee/The Calder Farmstead. If you're watching on YouTube, you can see it scrolling below. Big thanks to Adrian Drake, who made our theme music. Rock on! You can find him on social media at AD_dysfunction. That is AD_DYSFUNCTION. So he can make music for you too. Sean, enough about me. Where can the people find you?
I'm Sean O'Brien. You can find me on Twitter at Sean O'Brien81. That's SeanObrien81. I'm also on Instagram at Sean O'Brien_81. You can find my stats work, including the Monte Carlo playoff probability model that we talked about, as well as all of the other stats and goofy things that I do that I post graphs of. You can find all of that on my Tableau page, which is easily found at bit.ly/data-dump-and-chase. All lowercase, all one word. CC, where can people find you?
Well, my name is CC Hockley. You can find me representing Full Press Hockey on Twitter at FPC_AHL. Try to keep all the latest news and notes on the AHL from that account. You can also follow me on my personal Twitter account at CC Hawk. That's SEESEEHAWK. Mainly tweet about hockey. Big surprise there. But hey, I'm also a fan of pro wrestling, classic rock, the rock band Rush, Genesis. If it keeps me interested, hopefully it's not going to be bullshit. You can check out my writing on the Full Press Coverage Network at fullpresshockey.com. I just put out an article about 4 AHL, well, not AHL-contracted guys, but guys that have played with the Colorado Eagles for the majority of this season that may be on the trade block in a big Avalanche trade. So go check that out at fullpresshockey.com. Sean, take us home.
For CC Hockley, I'm Sean O'Brien. CC, happy St. Patrick's Day to you. Thank you for tuning in, and please dump and chase responsibly.